You know, they're selling you all wolf tickets, people. You're eating them right up.
Hey, pussy, are you still there?
I back. Trust me, I back.
But I'm not impressed by your performance.
You'll do nothing. You'll do nothing. Shut your fucking mouth, you'll do nothing. You'll do fucking nothing. Not one of you will do nothing.
I'll tell you what, bro. You know, I was out there, I was fighting all the hitters, bro. You ain't fought no hitters.
Come on, guys. It's normal.
I'm not saying I would fight you. I would kill you.
John, do you think I'm just gonna sit there and let you kill me, John? I mean, really?
No, don't be scared, homie.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody. The double champ does what the fuck he wants.
I'm gonna beat you into the living death. I mean, maybe that's your job, but where I come from, you know, people like that get slapped.
That's fucking illegal.
Nick Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel?
Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah, this is a simulated death match. And you haven't simulated anybody's death yet.
I said it last year. We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
What is the game plan going in against him?
The game plan is you go in there, hit him with some good shit, don't get hit, and come home with a pocket full of cash.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Everybody's on steroids. The whole UFC, everybody.
I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
Do you want to be a fighter? That is my question.
Any of you radio personalities think you want smoke? Call me Mr. Chimney. I want smoke.
Yes. What is up, MCR family? Another daily edition of the show, live on YouTube, 10 p.m. UK time. 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Podcast from iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. We're going to discuss all things box, MMA, and everything in between. I'm Matt, the Hipster Hunter. Find me at Matt Hunter, MCR, all platforms. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Fat Apples, Bayside, Mark, Rob, everyone in the chat. Hope everyone's having a great day. I do want to apologize for not doing a show yesterday and not doing the championship rounds, the makeup one yesterday. That would be done immediately after this show. So whenever I'm done and I have, obviously the show wraps up, I'm going to schedule the next one probably, let's say, 7 p.m. Eastern. Around that time is roughly when it's going to start. So for anyone on Patreon, we're going to get 2 shows today, back-to-back. If anyone not on Patreon, go over to patreon.com/MixSummitRadio, get a extra show right after this one. We discuss all things you want to discuss. But you can also call in this show. That is free, absolutely free. 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue, or email me, mixsummitradio@gmail.com if you want to call in internationally. You want me to get that international call-in link. But it's going to be an interesting day because obviously Wednesday is the Johnny in the chat. What's up, Johnny? Go check out his SoundCloud. And also, he's on Spotify, too. Shout out to him. And I don't know this for certain, but I wonder if it's because of Spotify now allowing like direct distribution from artists like SoundCloud does. I hope that's why, because if so, that's fucking awesome. Anyways, digressing. Obviously, it's Wednesday, so it's going to be the preview day. We're going to obviously talk about George Groves, Callum Smith. There's an ESPN Plus card as well. Jorge Linares comes back this weekend on Sunday as well. There was supposed to be a Victor Ortiz, John Molina Jr. fight, but that is off due to sexual assault charges and rape charges to Victor Ortiz. So that fight is off, and that's really all I'm going to say about that until more information comes out. As well as, obviously, Bellator 206, the start of really the Bellator relationship with DAZN, even though there was one last week on DAZN as well. This one's the big marquee event. There's no UFC this weekend. They're going to hold it down for the MMA community this Saturday. At the start of the welterweight Grand Prix, obviously Gegard Mousasi versus Rory MacDonald, Vanderlei Silva versus Rampage Jackson 3 or 4, I should say. Is it 4? Yeah, it's 4 at this point. There's so much to talk about, and then also Wilder Fury updates news, it landing in LA. Going to talk more about, obviously, I think the rematch clause for Tyson Fury, because that seems to be what a lot of people are talking about. And of course, like main event Mark is definitely wanting to remind me. I remember, don't worry, it's in my queue for all my topics, all the links I have up. It's in there. Clarissa Shields versus Christina Hammer is official. event for November 17th, I believe is the date, but don't quote me on that. Obviously, we're going to get to it as well. So hit that like button, share the show, subscribe. If you're listening to a podcast, leave that review. For all of our Patreon, one last little housekeeping news. I know I promised shirts, and they're here. But I'm saving up some more money. I'm going to order a second shipment of shirts because there's a few sizes I don't have enough of, and I want to have it. I want to have everyone basically have a shirt ready when I ship it, so it's all one thing. I ship all 19 of you, all 22 of you now, I think it is actually, shirts. So, again, please relax. It's okay. Be patient with me. Hopefully in the next month or two, I can get that second shipment in and then get the order in and maybe in time for Christmas is what I'm thinking. I hope that's not too late for some of you. But anyways, digressing, as I said, to all the news and discussions of the day, because we have a lot to get to. Fat Apples, yes, that is the same Rampage Jackson. Yes. That is a good callback. If anyone listening to the podcast wants to know what Fat Apples just said, was Jackson the dude that humped the reporter in an interview? He did that several times. Yes. Shout out to like 06 and like 07 before like we started being a little more respectable in entertainment. Like homophobic slurs, like calling people like the R word was like socially acceptable back then. Humping reporters, overall misogyny was just completely different back then. Only about a decade ago. 2006 and like 2008 was a wild time, and we don't think about it. But anyways, digressing. Let's get to the news and the topics of the day. As I said, actually, let's discuss. I was going to discuss the Wilder Fury stuff first. And then I will discuss it. It's the marquee topic. It is the main topic of the day, even though we do have a good fight ahead of us. Per Mike Coppinger at the ring, who really has done a great job, to be honest. Even though I really don't agree with Mike Coppinger on a few things. You know, he has done a very good job of breaking news recently. I will give him that. I will give him his just due for that. I think back in the day he was more of an opinion writer. I wasn't a big fan of his work, and now that he's more of a breaking news guy, I think he's much better suited for that, in my opinion. But anyways, digressing from that very offshoot topic, rabbit hole right there. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, heavyweight title tilt set for Staples Center in Los Angeles, per sources and per Mike Coppinger. I don't know what to think about this. I'll be honest. I think LA is a fun city for a big fight. We really haven't had one in a while. So I'm not mad at it. It's nice to have a big fight in LA. And Santiago's in the queue. Obviously, I'm going to get to your call after I discuss the George Grove stuff, or the fight, I should say. I can't remember the last time LA had a mega fight. That was boxing. We've had some really good UFC cards of recent memory that I can think of that I've been to, but not any real marquee boxing fight. We've had good ones. Don't get me wrong. We've had good ones. But they're more on the Jamal Charlo J-Rock level, where us hardcores are hyped about it. Like, we were all hyped about that fight. But that's not a fight that is transcendental to the sport. Whatever you want to say about Wilder Fury, it seems to be transcending the sport in some way. People that are just casual sporting fans understand that this fight's happening, vaguely know who these two guys are, and are curious about it. That seems to be true. The data points to people are paying attention to this matchup from an outside boxing perspective. So, LA having that's refreshing. Obviously, it's still a huge media market, so that does help it in a way, more so than Vegas, in my opinion. If you're not going to be in the basic New York or Washington, D.C. area, in the East Coast, where a lot of the media is in the U.S., LA is the next best spot, especially for entertainment. Entertainment news is based out here a lot more than I would say in New York and D.C. That's more news and politics and sports, I would say. But entertainment, that's LA. And this fight does sort of speak to the entertainment factor of sports entertainment. However, if I was, and I know they couldn't do it. I know they had trouble with dates and venues. They couldn't get the Barclays down for December. I understand that. But in a perfect world, it would have been in the Barclays Center in New York. It would have. Wilder sort of made a a second home there in a way. I would say a lot of his fights have seemingly been in the tri-state area, as well as it's a closer flight for UK fans of Fury. It's a better tourist city, I would say, than LA. I love LA, born and raised in LA, but LA is not a tourist city. It's too sprawled out. It's too loosely packed, actually, to be honest, for a tourist. Because in New York, you can walk around Manhattan all day and see everything you want to see. You can walk. But in LA, you really can't do that. Like, you can't walk around LA. Like, maybe downtown LA a little bit, but you can't, walk from downtown LA to Santa Monica, to Huntington Beach. You can't do those things. So it's going to be curious to see how they sort of build up the event around downtown LA in December. Definitely going to be interesting. I'm going to try to go to the press conference next week, I believe it is, October 3rd. I want to say is the press conference in LA. I could be wrong about the date, but definitely going to be trying to go to that one for sure. But yeah, I'm iffy. I'm indifferent really about the selection and location of this fight. I think there's some positives to it. I think there's some negatives to it. I think when you're looking at Staples Center or Mandalay Bay, not the T-Mobile, Staples Center is the better arena by far. The better cachet, better brand awareness, let's be honest, bigger corporate backing. Even though Mandalay Bay and the T-Mobile Arena are both owned by the same company, MGM Resorts and Casinos, they obviously put a lot of money in the T-Mobile Arena compared to Mandalay Bay now. Like, I've been to Vegas. I've been there for T-Mobile fights. I've been there for Mandalay Bay fights. There's a major difference in the last few years about those two arenas. So I'm not surprised they're going for the better arena and overall probably the better city in LA. Curious, though, because I thought, obviously, because of the rumored purses for these guys, both guaranteed $20 million each per the Daily Mail, which is just a staggering figure. I assumed Vegas money was involved there, just to be honest. I assumed investor money, casino money was involved there. Now that's not, I'm probably going to do a little more research about who really owns the Staples Center. I'm curious if there's some relation there with some Vegas owners there. But still, the lack of casino money is just an interesting factor now. Where they can get all the money for, I'm not doubting they don't have money. It's Al Heyman. He has money. It's Showtime. They have money. But I assumed Vegas investor money was involved here. Jonathan Fitch saying thoughts on the suspected undercard. But we do have news about that, actually, per ESPN, which is the next part of the Wilder Fury news, which I want to get to before we touch about George Groves, Callum Smith, the ESPN Plus card, etc. Jorge Linares coming back, and no one's talking about it, which is so sad. My boy. Jorge, man. It's okay. You still got the best style in boxing, just saying. But per Dan Raphael, the light heavyweight championship fight between Adonis Stevenson and Alexander Vajdic, which is now official for the Videotron Center in Quebec City, December 1st, will be technically televised on Showtime. Free, air quotes, free Showtime. The premium, it's not free. You have to pay for Showtime, obviously, but it's not pay-per-view. It's not part of the pay-per-view card. But it will be a dual-site telecast in a way. So the Showtime prelims, in a way, will be Stevenson versus Vajdic card, which will start at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then by 9 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 p.m. Pacific, what time is that? Is that 3 a.m. in the UK? I think it's 3 a.m. in the UK. That is when the pay-per-view portion starts for Showtime, which is obviously on the pay-per-view channel in the U.S. Now, how would this look? I don't know. I assume that they're going to have the broadcast team for obviously the pay-per-view card at the site for the LA fight for Wilder Fury, and then them just broadcast the Stevenson and Vajdic fight and then give their commentary from off-site. That's how I assume the broadcast will look. I don't assume Showtime's going to put a lot of money into this card in terms of production value. But yeah, also it just Stevenson Vajdic, that fight will not be on the pay-per-view portion. It will be sold as a way as prelims to it. The free, air quotes, free prelims to the pay-per-view card. What you think of that, leave a comment below. Call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. I'm curious, Are people happy about that? They just get a ton of fights that day. You know, Stevenson Vajic and Wilder Fury all on the same night under the Showtime umbrella, one on pay-per-view, one on just Showtime, regular premium cable network. I wonder what the thought process is out there for the fans and the consumers, how they feel about that. Do they like it? Do they wish Stevenson Vajic was just on the pay-per-view card? I'm assuming because of how pay-per-view works with networks, Showtime is paying the rights fee, basically. So basically putting up a lot of the money for Stevenson Vajic. They're not doing that for Wilder Fury, in theory. The pay-per-view is what really should be paying them overall, not Showtime, if that makes sense. Even though the Showtime can still give them a license fee and etc., the idea is that Showtime doesn't really pay for money for these Showtime pay-per-view fights, just like HBO pay-per-view. HBO is not really paying for all that production value. They're hoping that they get on the back end. Yeah, they pay it up front, obviously, for their employees like Jim Lampley, etc. They have to pay them salary, probably, I'm assuming. But they're hoping they make their money off of pay-per-view. Different than, let's say, ad networks or subscriber rates. It's just very different in terms of their calculation. Also, I'm going to address it now just because it's not really like a topic that I want to get into, to be quite honest. As, Shelly Finkel refusing to discuss the Joshua fight in April without a real deal. I'll be honest. I think this is kind of pointless. Like, us talking about Wilder, Joshua is pointless at this time. Why? Because allegedly, per Ben Davidson and Tyson Fury, they have a rematch clause. So no matter what we're talking about for April, Wilder Fury is happening twice back-to-back. Happening in December, and it's happening probably first half of 2019. I'm doubting the first quarter. First half, probably more of the second quarter. So lining up with April is when we're going to have Wilder Fury 2. So why even talk about an April date? It's already off the table. Am I wrong here? Please call in. Please leave a comment. I'm curious about what the thought process is out there for you fans. Do you see what I'm seeing here, or do you see it differently? Because otherwise, this is PR talk in the media, right? From Shelly Finkel, from Eddie Hearn. Eddie coming out, a couple of days ago saying that, we have to talk now before the Fury fight to get the fight done. Like, that's just PR talk. That's not going to happen. AJ has come out and said before, like, I have a fight, and then I'm going to discuss the next one. I don't... That was the whole deal with not having Dylan White attached to a contract a la Ward Kovalev. That was their whole talking point. So the hypocrisy on both sides right here is ridiculous. On top of that, they're not fighting each other in April. It's clear as day contractually, it's at the very least unlikely. Again, I haven't read the contract for Wilder Fury, so I'm not going to speak on it in guarantees and absolutes. There could be loopholes in it and outs in it for that rematch clause, because there's I know at times there seems to be almost what's the term? Not like waiting periods. Almost like a matching period for a network. There's almost like a matching period for a rematch clause where if neither guy really activates it, after, let's say, 3 to 6 months, then that clause is no longer valid. Then they can move on. But unless we have something like that, I doubt we have Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder in April. There's contractual obligations that they have to meet before they fight each other. So it's Anthony Joshua versus Dylan White in April. It's Wilder Fury 2, probably in May, April, June, sometime around then, maybe July. Johnny being optimistic, saying maybe we get it fall 2019. That's best case. That is best case scenario. Plus we have Jeremy Miller still in the mix, where God knows if he gets an AJ fight or a Wilder fight. And even though I'll be hyped for all those matchups, I'm a big baby Miller fan. I am. I like what he does. But it's like Main Event Mark says right here in the chat, I'm tired of the BS on both sides, like a shifty. Yeah, Main Event Mark saying like a shifty soap opera, and then he corrected himself saying shitty and shifty. You are right. That deserves some air horns. That's funny. And that's really all I have to say about this whole Wilder AJ April fight. It's not happening. We have rematch clauses that contractually mean it will not happen. So let's stop talking about it. And for Eddie Hearn and Shelly Finkel, please stop going to the media. Please stop giving these bullshit ultimatums that aren't ultimatums, that we know aren't that. Like you're just angling for the casual fans to get them on your side. And I think it's time to give it some breath, give it some room. Let these guys just do their thing now. Johnny saying it's an ego contest at this point. It absolutely is an ego contest. It is in every way, shape, or form. But I mean, that's what happens when you are dealing with multi-millionaires, high-level athletes / artists. You know, they think in this way, and it is what it is. But let's get to the fights this weekend. Let's just stop with all the soap opera shiftiness, as Main Event Mark says, because we do have some amazing fights to get to. Let me just pull up my bout list right here, so I have them all in front of me. Let's first go through like chronologically. I'm not going to break down really any of these fights, but the Oakland card for ESPN Plus for Jose Uzcategui versus Esquil Medina, and Yorina Cajas versus Alejandro Santiago. Genesis Cervania versus Carlos Carlson, also on the card. Joshua Greer on the card as well. There's some good names here. Definitely a card to sort of watch, pay attention to. A lot of fights on Friday. Obviously, the Grove Smith card is this Friday, by the way. For anyone out there watching, listening, for what DAZN is advertising, it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday. So just for any of those that want to know, because the fight is in Saudi Arabia, which I might get to in a bit. But yeah, I think that's a fun card. I love Joshua Greer Jr. I think he's a great prospect. He's a guy that talks that shit, and he sort of backs it up too. So I'm glad to see him get some shine here. Genesis Cervania is always a fun fighter. And Yorina Cajas could be the next Filipino guy. I'm not saying this is the next Pacquiao. I'm not going that direction. But the Philippines needs the next guy to sort of rally around. And Cajas could be that guy. And Uzcategui could be the best 168-pounder in the world. Like, he really could be the best guy. Obviously, this fight is a tune-up. It's a wash. I'm not happy about it. Main Event Mark saying, I wish that was Uzi versus Plant. Absolutely agree. I believe Caleb Plant broke his hand. He had some sort of injury, had it pulled out of a mandatory fight, I believe, with Uzcategui. But again, Uzcategui could be the best guy in the division. Even though this is a showcase tune-up, we know what it is. I think it's still important to tune into a guy like Uzcategui who came from nowhere but has all the tools to beat everyone in this division. Yes, obviously we're going to talk about another title fight in this division with Callum Smith and George Groves later on. And I think Uzcategui can probably beat the winner of that fight. Just being perfectly honest, that the best 168-pounder in the world is not the winner of Callum Smith, George Groves. It might be Uzcategui. Could be. But anyways, yes, that's the ESPN Plus top rank card. Moving on to the Showtime card. Even though this isn't really chronological, this card would be after the World Boxing Super Series card, but I just want to address it. The Devin Haney first card of him being his own promoter, Devin Haney Promotions, fighting Juan Borges. Not much to say here, to be quite honest. I think Devin Haney is an extreme talent. He should win this one rather easily, to be honest. Yeah, not much to say there other than shout out to Devin Haney. Extreme talent, and also getting that promoter bag. So salute to him. But moving on to the main boxing card of the weekend. And again, I just want to reiterate, Jorge Linares is fighting this weekend on Sunday on Facebook. I'm not going to talk about the matchup for the card. It's utter shit. But Jorge Linares is a talent. He can still bounce back at 140 and fight relevant guys. I mean, I beat these guys, but are we doubting that a Mike Garcia fight could happen? Are we doubting these certain fights cannot happen at 140? Let's be honest here. But obviously, we're watching Super Series last final fight, basically, for the first season. Obviously, we had Usyk beat Gassiev to become the undisputed cruiserweight champion through their cruiserweight tournament. And now we have the finale of the super middleweight tournament, George Groves versus Callum Smith. Both guys doing pretty well in this tournament. I think George Groves has impressed more, and that might give us I'm not going to say a wrong sense of this fight, but a clouded sense in this fight. Callum Smith has come in here and kind of been pedestrian. You know, he has looked so-so against Eric Skoglund. Shout out to Eric Skoglund, who is still recovering from his massive coma and brain hemorrhage. Last time I saw what he said on Twitter, I think it was a few days ago, he said, I'm recovering each day. So just shout out to Eric Skoglund, one of the guys that luckily did not pass away. He didn't pass away from anything, or not pass away. He didn't suffer those injuries per Callum Smith fight, but he suffered them in sparring later. But just wanted to mention that. Shout out to him. Prayers always out for a guy like Eric Skoglund who's going through what he's doing and going through. And then Callum Smith obviously fighting Nicky Hoskin, who is a phenomenal kickboxer. Not really a proven boxer yet, along the lines of like a Sergey Lepinets. Looked pedestrian in that fight as well. Nicky Hoskin had his moments. Made a competitive, fun fight. And then George Groves has looked, I would say, I'm not going to say phenomenal because he had spots where he did not look good in the Jamie Cox fight and in the Chris Eubank Jr. fight. But overall, he beat both those guys rather definitively. With Chris Eubank, it was more of a dominant fashion. He just outboxed him. Clearly levels above him in terms of technique, timing, accuracy, shot selection. I mean, you name every sort of category you can think of, he was better at. Other than maybe pure power, but that didn't really matter. He was catching him in between Chris Eubank's shots, having his way with him. Pause. And for Jamie Cox had that one moment where he flurried on George Groves, made Groves shell up in the corner, and landed some really good shots. I think everyone's forgetting about that because George Groves finished him with the body shot. There was an actual finality to that fight. So I think we sort of glossed over how good Jamie looked in that first go of it. With the flurries, was landing good combinations. George Groves still has defensive flaws. That's what I kind of want to touch on because that's one side of the coin as to what is going to determine this fight, is those defensive lapses and flaws of George Groves. Obviously, always being a unorthodox guy with wide stance, hands low, looking to snipe you with counter shots. And early in his career, he was a little more erratic, a little more unorthodox, a little more aggressive with the style. And as he's gotten older, he's refined that. He's been more composed, a little bit tighter guard and defense overall as well. He's improved, don't get me wrong. But he's still relatively the same fighter. He still has his hands low. He is still susceptible to that right hand over and over again. He still relies on his reflexes, his athleticism, which is always, I think, above average while not being great. And a guy like Callum Smith, obviously not the athlete amongst the two. I think we can all agree with that. He might have the better power of the two, but he's not the athlete. He has the slower hand speed, footwork, lacks head movement. He's just not the athlete. George Groves is the athlete. So can George Groves' athleticism negate his defensive flaws that he's always had? That's one side of the coin. The other side is Callum Smith. Callum Smith is a guy that really fights one way, similar to his brother Liam. He does good work, great left hooks, works off the jab, works in combination, goes to the body and the head pretty fairly and evenly. But he doesn't get in the fire like his brother Liam does. He doesn't get on the inside and bruise you up. He doesn't get on the side and try to make you uncomfortable. I haven't really seen that. I see a guy that likes to work at the mid-range and box you, work combinations, and hopefully land that power shot. Groves, on the other hand, is a guy that doesn't want to stay at mid-range. He doesn't like staying at mid-range. He wants to be on the outside, on the back foot, trying to land that counter right hand and land the jab efficiently. His jab has become a crucial weapon to his game, which he did not have in, let's say, the Carl Froch fights. While I think Callum Smith is going to have trouble trying to get on just the mid-range. He's going to have trouble trying to keep George Groves stationary. Callum Smith does very well when you come at him, when you want to engage on his turf. George Groves does not do that anymore. He does not engage with you on your turf. He makes you fight his fight. And either you are better than him at that, or you are just a meaner fighter in there. I don't see Callum Smith as that mean guy. I don't see him as that Madonna-like or Sean Porter-like. I don't see that. I see Danny Garcia. I see a guy that has exceptional skill when he does apply it, but it's in one lane of boxing. He does not have a wide arsenal to go back on and fall back on. Either he beats you at his plan A, or that's it, or he loses. Even though he hasn't lost yet, I think we're going to see that this weekend. I think George Groves is going to outbox him. I think we're going to have moments where George Groves does get caught. Callum Smith does carry some power in his hand, and he does throw in combination. That was the issue with Chris Eubank. Chris Eubank did not throw in combination. Jamie Cox just did not have the power or the durability to stay. He just wasn't at that level. Let's be honest. Just Jamie Cox clearly wasn't at that level. Chris Eubank had the durability. He just didn't have the game plan, did not throw in combination, did not throw at the volume he should have. And I believe that Callum Smith is going to try to be the aggressor. He's going to look to be frustrated at times. He might catch George Groves again at times, but you're not going to see a consistent, efficient work rate from Callum Smith, because I think George Groves is going to work his game, work his pattern, which is an unorthodox one, which is one that is hard to nail down and figure out. But definitely going to be a fun fight stylistically. Again, let's not be surprised, or I shouldn't be surprised, or anyone shouldn't be surprised if Callum Smith comes out here and he catches George Groves off of a lazy left hook and lands that right hand. You know, a la the second Carl Froch fight. Like, that does happen. We've seen George Groves get caught in the Badou Jack fight. Hell, even in, like I said, the Jamie Cox fight. Go back and watch that fight, which is very recent. Jamie Cox landed some really good shots and was able to hurt George Groves and flurry on him. If that's Callum Smith, it might be different. It might be a very different story. I just don't believe that Callum Smith has that style to step on the gas pedal. I don't see that. I haven't seen it yet. So until I do, I'm not going to bank on that. And plus, he just doesn't have the fundamentals plus athleticism that guys like Badou Jack have. Badou Jack was able to negate George Groves' athleticism, and then on top of that, his fundamentals negated all of that unorthodox work that George Groves does. I think the fundamental work from Callum Smith will negate some of the unorthodoxy of George Groves, but he doesn't have the athleticism to really capitalize on moments where he can, in my opinion. Definitely see some dissension in the chat. I don't disagree with anyone picking Callum Smith. If people are picking him, I can see why. You go back and watch George Groves, he is hittable. Callum Smith can hit hard. Like, it's not a hard train of logic to make Callum Smith winning this fight. I don't see him winning a decision, though. I just don't see that. If we do, it will be truly a standout performance, because it will show a different level to his boxing game, in my opinion, if we see Callum Smith actually win a definitive decision. But yes, that is my thoughts on the matchup and the fight. We're going to go to Santiago before we get to the rest of the boxing news of the day, because he's been on hold for like 30 minutes and he's press one. I've seen Gary come in and out. I think Fugatti came in and out at one point as well. Call in, guys, if you're listening, because I'm taking calls now as I work through the rest of the topics. So if you're out there listening right now and you want to call in, 323-870-4051, I'll take a call. We'll slow down the topics. No big deal. Get some conversation going here. Santiago, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Just super hyped from yesterday's announcements of Clarissa Shields with Christina Hammer for November 17th. And then you got Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder being on here for LA. You know, I could not have been more hyped. The only thing that got me down that entire day was finding out I might not get to fight Zach. That's about the only thing that got me down.
Yo, we don't care about that, fam. We don't care about that, fam.
I want smoke.
We don't talk about that other show.
Other than that, man, I am very excited, man. I cannot wait. You know, it's gonna be a good next 2 months just to see these things play out. And to be honest, I'd completely forgotten about Stevenson Bozdik up until like looking at my calendar. Really, I'm just really excited to know that I'll get to be there live at Staples to see Wilder versus Fury. You know, get to be with all the other guys there in Bojo, Ferngully, JP, and whatnot. it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and obviously this week we got the finals for the super middleweight tourney. God damn it though, man! I swear, Victor Ortiz. I saw that news just yesterday too about the whole thing. That guy cannot keep his head on straight, and it is what it is, I guess, at this point. But looking forward to seeing Jorge Linares back in action. It'll be interesting to see how he finishes out the last half of his career, if he does stay at 140. And, Devin Haney, I remember seeing Devin Haney on the undercard of a Dusty Hernandez-Harrison fight, and I remember thinking to myself that this guy looks like he's the real deal. And, I'm sorry, he's been a bit tamed in some of his performances, but I definitely think that against a guy like Juan Carlos Burgos, I think this is his fight to shine and show just exactly what he's capable of. It's going to be interesting to see how this week plays out and how all of these fights play out, because really it's going to be a good week. And plus, I'll be in Vegas, so can't have more fun to that. I don't really have much more to say aside from that, but if you have any questions, feel free to shoot. Otherwise, that's my call.
Very quickly, Santiago, have you got to Zone yet? Have you got that subscription for it yet? I'm curious.
Yeah, I already got it this week, considering I'm going to be in Vegas when this takes place, so I want to make sure I have everything. Plus, it's nice to know that I could download it on my PlayStation 4, so that's nice.
Oh, you can?
Oh, yeah, the Zone's available on the PlayStation Store. Very, very unexpected surprise, too. So if you're a PlayStation owner and you want to get the Zone, there you go. You can download it on the PlayStation for free, and you just pay the subscription.
Okay, thank you, Santiago. I was just curious about that because you were over here for the Anthony Joshua fight. I was curious if you got that. Definitely watch the Bellator fight this weekend. You're going to love it. Damn, that's awesome. I'm going to check if I have it because obviously it's available on Apple TV, but if you're not an Apple TV user, you may not know this, but there are different generations of Apple TV. And apparently I have the generation right before they had the App Store in there. So my Apple TV, I cannot download apps like Apple apps. I cannot download them. It's the apps, it's preloaded on there. So everyone that has the newer Apple TV, they can download the Zone, have it work. Man, I was so pissed off trying to get that shit to work last Saturday. I was heated. I was so heated. I hope to God my first generation PS4, which has survived this long. Shout out to this shit, man, by the way. It was like my first generation PS3 that worked for years and years. God bless these machines. Sony, great company. I hope that my first generation PS4 has the app on it, because sometimes it's just not compatible. Sometimes the hardware is not there. God knows what happens, so I'm definitely going to check that out. Main Event Mark saying Xbox, ? I believe Xbox has it. Xbox has everything. Like, that's the thing. Xbox has the UFC app, which the PS4 does not. It has the WWE app, which the PS4 does have. So I'm assuming it has the DAZN app. Xbox seems to have everything that you could want in terms of apps and applications and stuff like that. So that sort of stuff. It's just a worse hardware device, in my opinion. But anyways, digressing. Totally off topic. Let's get to the rest of the news of the day. Oh, wait, Gary called in. Yep. Gary in Dallas wants to talk about the fights, I think. Gary, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right, man. How's everything going?
Going good, man. Another beautiful day in L.A.
Good. I think this fight being in L.A., and I'm going to try to make it out there. I'm going to check ticket prices and see what airline tickets are. I'm going to try to make it out to this fight. I'm really into this fight. I think putting it in L.A. is a good idea. I think putting in venues like the Staples Center or Madison Square Garden in New York makes it more appealing, right? Because if you go to Vegas now, there's nothing but local media there, right? There's always media in L.A. and New York. And there's a special feel to it. There are so many fights in Vegas. There's a special feel. Like I feel like the legitimate heavyweight champion of the world should be fighting in either New York or L.A. They can hype it. It'll get hyped by the media, not just fight week, but all the way in the build-up. Mm-hmm. I think putting these type fights in either New York or L.A. is a good idea.
No, I definitely see the logic behind that. I agree. The media factor is huge. Like the LA radio scene, the entertainment scene, it's just massive out here.
Right. So, I mean, it's going to have, they can build it up more than just Fight Week, where Vegas, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's for sports media, it's dead until there's a fight there. So I like that idea. I didn't catch the beginning of the show. Did you give a prediction of what you think this would do domestically in pay-per-view buys? Like how many pay-per-view buys do you think it would do in the U.S.?
I didn't say that in the beginning of the show, but I'll say it now. I think it does 350. I think it does around 350.
Okay. I was gonna say between 300 and 500. So we're about on the same page.
I think if it does 500, it's a huge success, honestly, and it will be a sign of Wilder really coming into the American sporting scene. I think if it does 200, it's still respectable. It's not laughable. It's not great, but it's not laughable. If it does 300 or up, I think it gets props. Like, people respect that number. Like, now, especially nowadays in the pay-per-view market, 300,000 and up is decent.
300,000 is decent, right? But Andre Ward and Kovalev did about 150, right? And
170.
Golovkin with Lemieux did about 150, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that Wilder and Fury are both bigger draws than Ward and Triple G. So this fight should do a lot more than those fights did. And if those fights did 150, I think that Wilder and Fury should do double that. Easy.
And then on top of that, the combination of the two, like it's Wilder and Fury together in a build-up. That's very different than Ward Kovalev or Triple G Lemieux or Triple G Jacobs. Like, the build-up should be innately different.
The build-up is going to be great. I can't wait for the press conference. I can't wait for the build-up because these two guys can sell the fight. And with Wilder, you can make him, because he has such spectacular knockouts, right? I mean, Wilder is, outside of the first Severn fight, right? Like, Wilder's never in a boring fight because his knockouts are so abrupt and so violent. You could put a highlight package of him together to the casual fan who doesn't watch much boxing and make him want to watch that because punchers, especially heavyweight punchers, have an attraction all their own. So, I mean, you can just, you know what I'm saying? You can really build Wilder. And if Wilder does knock Fury out in front of 400,000 or 500,000 pay-per-view buyers, he's the next superstar, right? So, like, all he has to do, because, I mean, Wilder's not going to win a boring fight. He's going to win by knockout, and it's going to be a devastating knockout. If Wilder does that, and there's 400,000 or 500,000 pay-per-view sales, he is the next star, right? Kind of like when Mayweather did about 400 pay-per-view sales with a 12 gag, and Mayweather destroyed him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He became that pay-per-view star. If Wilder's going to beat Fury, which most people think he will, it's going to be by knockout. I mean, I don't think anyone picks Wilder to sit back and outbox him for 12 rounds. So he would get a sensational knockout over Fury in front of all of those fans. This is a big shot for Fury. I mean, a big shot for Wilder to be that pay-per-view star.
I agree with everything you're saying. The winner of this fight, especially if it's Wilder in the U.S., obviously if it's Fury representing the U.K., they become meteoric in their respective markets. They do. Like, imagine the media tour that Deontay Wilder does post knocking out Fury in front of the Staples Center crowd in L.A., in front of all of L.A. media, all the entertainment media, and on top of that, like you said, the idea that we both have that does around 300 to 500,000 pay-per-view buys, which will be a good success, I think he becomes something quite different than what we've seen. With the Spences, the Thurmans, the Crawfords, he becomes a different stratosphere completely, which he already kind of is. Like, I know people really downplay Wilder's stardom, and I get it. Like, Eddie Hearn has done a fantastic job of spinning that narrative. But Wilder's already in a different stratosphere than a lot of these guys.
Right, and his numbers on Showtime bear that out. I mean, there are more HBO subscribers than there are Showtime subscribers. And when HBO does 1 million views, it's like a big deal.
Think about this.
Wilder
Think about this.
Did 1 million.
Think about this. Danny Garcia, Sean Porter. Think about how grave a matchup that is. Wilder has never done that low on Showtime. Never. Never. He's never done that low of viewership, ever. Like, Wilder is a different star than a lot of the guys we talk about as stars. And I think if he beats Fury by knockout in front of the crowd we expect, it even catapults him to another sphere, which I cannot wait to see. I mean, he does it twice, in a row, which is sort of what's looking like it's going to happen. I think it even cements him further. And then plus the AJ fight is always there. Wilder has a clear path to being the next big superstar post Mayweather. He does. He has the clearest path of all.
He does, but he's got to win. He's got to knock Fury out. That's the fight he's got to win. If he does, and it's 400,000 or 500,000 pay-per-view buys, then even if Eddie does not want to make the fight with Joshua, him fighting Baby Miller or Dillian White are still pay-per-view fights that would do several 100,000 pay-per-view buys because Wilder is the star, right? Just like when Canelo fought Liam Smith. No one cared about Liam Smith, but it still did respectable numbers because everybody was paying to see Canelo. If Wilder knocks out Fury, he'll be the star that everyone doesn't pay to see him. They want to see Wilder knock somebody out, right? It was like, I'm not going to compare him to Tyson, but Tyson could fight anybody on pay-per-view, and it would do big numbers because they just want to see Tyson knock somebody out. That's the chance that Wilder's got if he knocks Fury out. He'll be that star. America loves a heavyweight, and they love a heavyweight who can punch. Wilder is that. He just needs to do it on this big stage.
I agree. And even though he, using the Tyson comparison slightly, he has the physique. He looks like an athlete. That helps. Yeah. Tyson looks like a monster. Wilder looks like a monster too. Different monster, but they both look like monsters. It helps. I think Wilder has, on top of that, great sense of charisma, style, stage presence. Like, the guy has it all. Like you said, he just needs to win these fights by knockout, which he most likely will win by knockout. And then it's all but set in stone that he is the next guy. Any thoughts on the fights this weekend, Gary?
I'm trying to get into the Callum Smith fight. I don't know. It's not really good. That's Friday night or Friday morning?
Yes.
Friday morning?
Friday morning, yes.
Yeah. I'm trying because I've watched every fight in the tournament so far. I don't know. Maybe it's in the layup, delay in between the semifinals and now. I'm just having a hard time getting into this fight. And then I got to wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to watch it. I don't know. And then the rest of the fights are good. Any update on Victor Ortiz? Is that fight going to happen? Or
no.
Is that off?
Last time I checked, ESPN was reporting the fight is off.
Okay. Then, Linares is good to watch. It's like Linares can't beat Mikey and he can't beat Loma. So it's like he's fighting for like a bronze medal kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, now he's at 140. Now he's at 140, so now he's probably going to try to angle for a Jose Ramirez fight, something along that lines. He's going to look for one of those guys.
Off topic, about 140 pounder. Omar Figueroa.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea what's happened to him? What is going on with him?
I mean,
it's been over a year since he fought.
I mean, last we all heard he was supposed to fight Broner, right? And then he got the DUI. He got in jail and all that stuff. That's the last time we heard about him, man. Last time.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No, haven't heard anything.
All right. That's all I got, man.
Well, thank you, Gary. I hope you have a great day, and see you either tomorrow or whenever you decide to call in again or be in the chat again. Hope you have a fantastic day. Again, you can call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Give your thoughts on Wilder Fury, AJ, that whole drama, soap opera, or obviously the fights this weekend, which you may or may not be interested in. And quickly, because Gary mentioned not being hyped on Grove Smith, and I actually wanted to talk about this. I think that fight, talking about fight location, that fight being in Saudi Arabia, in Jeddah, which sounds like a Star Wars planet, just saying. Of course, there's no atmosphere for that fight. It's in a location because some oil barons and billionaires decided, hey, we're going to pay a lot of money to these Eastern European media companies which own the World Boxing Super Series. We're going to get the fight here because we wanted to put on it for our investors and our business partners and have a little, $100,000 a plate fight, and we know how it is. Russia has this at times where it's very small venues for very marquee fights in the division because investors pay for it to put on basically either state propaganda or business propaganda, whichever one they decide that time. And most of the time they're actually linked, but maybe that's a rabbit hole I'm not going to get into, though I might get into a little bit later when we talk about some more Conor McGregor news, actually, and some Chechenian news. God, I can't wait for that one. But Grove Smith being in Saudi Arabia, away from its obvious location in the UK, it's two UK fighters that have built up a huge following in the UK, and no, you're going to put this fight in Saudi Arabia. Really? Like, seriously? Now, from my very limited knowledge on this, please, somebody in the UK, either leave a chat in our live chat, comment below, or call in. Email me, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com if you want a free international call-in link. Again, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com if you want that free international call-in link. If you are in the UK, I want to hear your thoughts on this. But from what my basic knowledge is that there's pretty cheap flights from Saudi Arabia to the UK through some business relationship with like the British Emirates. Maybe I'm very wrong on that, but I heard that from someone in the UK before. So maybe it's really cheap to fly to Saudi Arabia if you're a UK fan. I don't know. I know it's another expense, though. It's hotel, it's flight for people that they could probably just drive or take the train down to London, Manchester, wherever they decided to put this fight if it was in the UK. And then you actually have the big fight atmosphere because you have, loud UK crowds chanting at the weigh-ins, at the press conference. You have zero of that here. Zero. Because of the location of it. And it's obvious that that is the reason why. It is what it is. But I think the location of Grove Smith is hurting it drastically, not only for people like Gary, but for probably people in the UK too. Like the natural fan bases of these two fighters, obviously the promotion did not serve them. Obviously the promotion did not care about the consumers. They cared about a check from some investors in Saudi Arabia. Like that's clear as day, and it is what it is. Let's move on to some more news and topics of the day. So I have the Bellator 206 card to get to as well. What else do we have? Claressa Shields, Christina Hammer, as Santiago said, is set for November 17th in Atlantic City. Location. I'm not too hyped on Atlantic City, though I know they are trying to rebuild that entire area, putting fights back. I understand this fight just seems bigger. This is a fight that should be on a Wilder Fury undercard. Right? This is a fight that should be paired with something really big to propel it to different levels. Because even though this is a fantastic fight, we all know this is probably the best fight in women's boxing in a very long time. However, I think we only know that still. I think we are only the people that are cued in on how amazing this matchup is, how amazing Claressa Shields is, how amazing Christina Hammer is. So, in my mind, to put this as a main event in Atlantic City, which is a market that is surviving, basically, not thriving, it is surviving. I don't know about, the location of it, the setting of it. I have some critiques of it, but it's still a fantastic fight. I'm glad it's made official, that it's set. Like I said, the best fight in women's boxing right now that we have, and cannot wait to see it happen. I mean, the style matchup between the two is very apparent. Hammer is the taller, rangier boxer that wants to work off the jab. Shields is the exact antithesis of that. She's mean and get in your face, throw heavy shots, work the body. It's going to be a grueling fight for Christina Hammer if she does not sort of establish her range and her power early. Let's be honest here. But yeah, nothing else really to talk about that fight until we get to it, give our preview of it. for fight week. Same day as Usyk Bellew will be Briedis versus Mikhailian and Glowacki versus Vlasov in Chicago. Obviously different complete city and card. But for any of us, cruiserweight fans, you will know that on DAZN, you're going to get a lot of cruiserweight fights on this date, November 10th. Obviously the Bellew Usyk card, and then this doubleheader for the second cruiserweight tournament. I can't wait to see Briedis versus Glowacki. That's what I'm going to say about that. And shout out to the cruiserweight division, at least, still putting on fights and still getting some sort of promotional backing. Not a little update, but comment from Vasily Lomachenko. I saw a lot of people mention, Luke Campbell, Anthony Corolla as potential opponents for Vasily Lomachenko. And Vasily was like, I'm sorry, fam. I'm not very interested in you guys. Like, I'm good. You guys aren't it, unfortunately. Like, don't get emotional. Why you emotional? But y'all ain't on my level. Like, that's basically what he's saying here. Hold on. Where's that soundbite? Here we go. This is what he's telling Corolla and Campbell.
Stay in your lane.
And I agree. Stay in your lane. You do not want that business at all. Shout out to Lomachenko, the king. A little update on the Billy Joe Saunders misconduct, sort of violation he had with the BBOC. He was hit with a $100,000 fine by them for mocking a drug addict and then tricking her into hitting people as they pass by. But, yeah, shout out to the BBOC for their really strict morality clause they seem to have for their fighters. This is something you just do not see in the U.S., right? Like, imagine if, God, who would be like a good example of this? Imagine like Jeff Horn in Australia. Like, imagine if he did that. Like, do you think the Australian regulatory body would hit him with a $100,000 fine? You think it's, Sammy Vasquez back in the day? They would hit him with a $100,000 fine? I just don't see it. Like, Danny Garcia would, I don't see these people, if they did it, they were getting in trouble in these different markets. So, I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if it's a bad thing. But they are very strict about it. That is for sure. Definitely curious about what other people think about the BBOC and their sort of real strict adherence to ethics for their licensed fighters. But we're going to move on to the MMA portion of the day. So if you want to call in and talk about the fights, call in 323-870-4051. Press 1 to get in the queue. Let's head over to the fights over in San Jose, California. Bellator 206, Gegard Mousasi versus Rory MacDonald for the middleweight championship, plus Quinton Rampage Jackson versus Vanderlei Silva, Douglas Lima versus Andre Korshkov for the opening welterweight Grand Prix, Aaron Pico returning on the card against Alejandro Higa. Great fight there. Can't always talk about that one. Carrie Melendez, obviously the wife of Gilbert Melendez and real established kickboxer, fighting Dakota Zimmerman. I don't know much about that matchup, so I can't really talk about that. But that's really all I have to say about or all the fights I'm going to mention on that card. And then let's break it down, obviously. Starting from the bottom up, Aaron Pico versus Leandro Higa. Oh, man, this is going to be a fun fight. A huge step up in competition. Aaron Pico, while obviously a real credentialed, famed collegiate wrestler here in the U.S., massive prospect that had 0 fights. I remember there was sort of a bidding war for him when he sort of made his intentions known that he was leaving collegiate and amateur wrestling and going to the UFC. MMA. And the UFC jockeyed for, an Aaron Pico signing, and also Bellator, I think, one FC, or now one championship, tried to get him as well. I think LFA tried to get him. There's a bunch of people that tried to get Aaron Pico. He was a huge commodity when he came out. And then he had his first fight, and he lost in 30 seconds. He got submitted, I think it was a rear naked choke. And I think that allowed him to sort of get away from all that hype, from all that pressure. He's had 3 knockout wins in a row since then. Has looked pretty phenomenal in those fights as well. Obviously, the opponents aren't at the level of Leandro Higa, who has phenomenal striking and grappling as well. Even though a guy who's like 18-4, not the most accomplished guy, but still, 18-4 compared to 3-1. Now, could Aaron Pico just wrestle Leandro Higa and win decision? Possibly, but he's a guy that likes to stand up, likes to sort of try out his new tools and arsenal. It's going to be interesting to see how he sort of combats Higa here. I picked Pico slightly, though it is going to be a competitive, fun, back-and-forth fight. Douglas Lima versus Andrei Korshchev, obviously the rematch of their fight from 2016, I believe, where obviously Douglas Lima knocked out Korshchev in the 3rd round via vicious, I think it was a right hand, straight down the pipe, knocked him out cold. I'll be honest, this was a rematch I wasn't really hyped on. As it's gone closer, I'm still not hyped for it. It was a fight that I really didn't need to see again, at least right now, especially opening out the tournament. I would much rather have either guy go to different names in the opening round of the tournament and then meet each other if they were to get past the opening round. Not putting them in a rematch against each other in the opening round of this tournament. It just doesn't do it for me. I think Lima should win this. I think he's the better grappler. I think he's just the more competent striker than the two. Korshchev, I think, even though he's a talent in and of himself, I don't think he really has it to beat Douglas Lima. I don't think he has that one skill like Rory MacDonald's wrestling to beat a Douglas Lima. He just doesn't have that. So I'm picking Douglas Lima by either a unanimous decision or knockout again. Going on the co-main event, Quentin Rampage Jackson versus Vanderlei Silva in their 4th fight. God, no one needed this. Vanderlei Silva has fought once in 5 years, and he lost. Quentin Jackson has fought fairly actually frequently. Fighting either 1 or 2 times a year since about 5 years as well. Trading wins and losses. When he fights subpar competition, he beats them. When he fights better competition, he loses. Though Vanderlei Silva at this point really isn't that guy. Vanderlei Silva, again, is a commodity you can't trust in any way. Even though Quentin Jackson isn't a commodity you can trust really at all, you can trust him a little bit. He beats these guys, these old faded guys, or the guys that just aren't on his level completely. I'm expecting a knockout here, but not much to really say about this fight in terms of the style matchup. Both guys are faded shot fighters, and it's a fight between 2 faded shot fighters. You know what that looks like. I think that regardless of what combat sport we're talking about, that looks exactly the same in every single sport when 2 faded shot athletes face up against each other. It just does. The main event, Gegard Mousasi, Rory MacDonald. A matchup that I keep going back and forth on. Gegard Mousasi is a guy that hasn't looked that great in Bellator compared to his UFC run. Rory MacDonald, ever since the Robbie Lawler loss, has diminished as a fighter. You can tell. He's not still diminishing, but he diminished. He is not the same fighter since that war. I'm it's curious to see who sort of wins out, who is less shot in this fight. To be quite honest, who has a little more left in the tank. That's an interesting factor in this fight. On top of the technical matchup between the two, Rory MacDonald more of a traditional wrestler, grappler, while Gegard Mousasi a little more comfortable off his back, comfortable out of more disadvantageous positions, but for more like high-risk submissions. Gegard Mousasi loves that game. So I think grappling-wise, if MacDonald's able to really stay on top, keep position throughout the matchup, you should win this one rather comfortably. If Gegard Mousasi is able to control the grappling exchanges or at least negate it, I think Gegard takes this. I think Rory MacDonald just does not have the fluidity and the striking to compete with Gegard Mousasi on the feet. MacDonald is going to need to mix it up. He's going to need to get Mousasi against the cage, work him to the ground, rough him up, make it a little more of a dirtier fight. I think Gegard Mousasi is going to be okay with that. I think he's going to deal with it, roll with it, and for a 5-round fight, I think he's going to take it in the later rounds. I can see Rory MacDonald getting hurt, getting finished with a submission or something like that, but it probably goes all 5 in a fun back-and-forth affair, but I really don't see how Rory MacDonald wins it. You know, he clearly is a guy that needs his wrestling to be better than you. He needs his grappling to be better than you to work his entire game plan. And Gegard Mousasi is a really tough guy to wrestle. He's a tough guy to deal with in that department. Even though he is traditionally a kickboxer, his grappling game, a la like an Alistair Overeem, is highly competent for MMA. Highly competent. So, again, Gegard Mousasi slightly in a fun back-and-forth fight is my pick for the main event of that matchup. Moving on to some news of the day. The UFC, per Louis McKeever of Bloody Elbow, is reporting that the UFC is looking to book Yoel Romero versus Alexander Gustafsson for an interim title fight at Madison Square Garden for UFC 230. What? Obviously, if you're maybe not following along as closely as others, Romero turned down a Paulo Borrachino Costa fight for UFC 230 because he needed 5 to 6 months to recover from injury/surgery. Now the UFC is looking to book him for the same event at a different weight class for a title shot, when his last fight was a title shot at a lower weight class and he lost. And on top of that, he missed weight for that title fight. So he wasn't even allowed to win it if he had won it. So yet we're going to give him the Gustafsson fight, really. On top of that, he is now miraculously healthy and not dealing with a surgery/injury. I don't know what to make of UFC 230, and we're going to get some more information about it because it continues to sort of unravel in a way. Again, just make sure you guys saw the article. I don't know if you guys saw it. Go check it out. Read it. Interesting stuff. And then on top of that, Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier, who are on the card, are now sort of vying for a new division in the UFC to be made for the 165-pound division, which is what's the term? It's a recognized weight class per the ABC commission. So technically that is a division that's allowed to MMA. It's just up to promoters if they implement them. So Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier have been saying, let's make this for a title shot or a vacant belt, I should say, not a title shot, for a vacant belt or a new division. Dana White coming out and saying that is not happening at all. I have no idea what is happening to UFC 230. Do not be surprised if at the very end we get John Jones versus Alistair Overeem or Gustafsson in a rematch for an interim title, or both of them for an interim title. And Nate Diaz and Dustin Poirier for a vacant new division belt. Why not? Why not? You know? And on top of that, you have Conor McGregor winning his fight, let's say, the week before. You have him move up to the new 165-pound division and become the first guy to win 3 belts in 3 divisions. I'm not saying the UFC is doing this. I'm just saying it writes itself. It does. It does. If I'm the UFC, that's what I'm doing. So don't be surprised if that happens and you heard it here first. I'm not saying I have any news or rumors or I've heard anything. This is purely wild speculation. But that's what I would do, just being completely honest. Because UFC 230 otherwise is a complete fucking shit show. And speaking of shit shows, the National Labor Relations Board have denied or dismissed Leslie Smith's complaint against the UFC for accusations of unfair business practices. Lucas Middlebrook, her attorney, which I've talked to, will be repealing it. And this is just really upsetting. It seems that they're going to have to go back to the original plan of just getting employees, basically employee signing cards. I forget the exact term of it. I apologize. But in order to get recognized as employees, if you're not employees, let's say you're an independent contractor, your taxes are $10.99 right at the end of the year. You have to sign all these identification cards, and a certain amount of you within the company, all these independent contractors, sign them. Then you can present it to the National Labor Relations Board if you hit a certain threshold, and then they have to sort of discuss your case, discuss if you are employees or not. Once that's decided and you're given that employee status, then you can unionize. They're separate movements. They're separate sort of goals, though they are tied to one another. You cannot be a union without being first an employee. But it's not one with the other. It's not the second you become employees, you can become unionized. You theoretically can, but the battle to unionize then starts at that point. So that's what it seems like Leslie Smith is doing. She's going back to that, from what I've heard, from what Lucas has told others and myself in the past. That is the main goal, and it should still be the main goal. That you have to sign these identification cards, get employee status, and then the whole ball game really changes. Because right now, it's hard. It is. Especially in this current political landscape with the National Labor Relations Board, which is very anti-union and anti-collective bargaining, is hard. So you need employee status. To do it from a place of an independent contractor, it just makes your job as a lawyer, as if you're like Leslie Smith, an activist, that much harder, to be quite honest. Moving on, though, shout out to Leslie Smith. Salute to her and what she's been doing out there. Speaking of saluting, Kareem Zidane over at Zidane Sports on Twitter. Definitely go follow him if you're not one of the preeminent reporters, if not the preeminent reporters on geopolitical connections with MMA and sports overall. Just a wealth of knowledge and information. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, but per Zidane, Zabulat Umarov, Chechenia's Minister of Press and National Policy, called Conor McGregor a Mexican cock who behaves like an outrageous clown for his comments towards Razan Kadyrov at the UFC 229 press conference. Seems, and this is Don's words, seems McGregor has struck a nerve with the Chechen regime. Ooh, this is getting That's all I'm going to say about that, man, because I don't want any Eastern European snipers coming out my door trying to poison me or anything like that. I know what Vladimir Putin and his buddies get to. But it's just funny to me that at this point, even though there's a level of this is serious issues and dangerous people we're talking about here, the fact that Conor McGregor is now on the level of getting dictatorships upset at him, calling him a Mexican cock. Tell me that's not like hashtag MMA to its core right there. Or just combat sports. Like only in the combat sports world do we get Chechenian dictators and fascists calling a fighter a Mexican cock when that fighter is not Mexican, he is Irish. That is just amazing. This entire story is hilarious. Salute to everyone involved for making my day better when I read stuff like this. Thank you. And thank you for Kareem Zidane for reporting it, because otherwise I would not have laughed my ass off this morning when I read that. Let me show it again, because it's just that great. Definitely go check out. And just to make note, this is the first comment below a GIF of Borat. That's all I'm going to say about that. Fucking hilarious. I love it. Get to some more news of the day, some fight announcements and news as we wrap up the show. Carlos Condit versus Michael Chiesa targeted for UFC 232. Love that fight matchup. I think it makes a lot of sense for Michael Chiesa's first fight at the welterweight division. And plus, we get to see what Condit has left in the tank. You know, he hasn't looked good since his comeback from his knee injury and surgery. Hopefully, this is a fight that he does look a little better in. You know, again, who knows what we have here with Carlos Condit at this point. And Michael Chiesa, God knows what sort of fighter we have him as at 170. We've seen fighters move weight classes and rejuvenate their career. We've seen fighters move weight class and it ruins their career. I don't know which one this is yet. I'm usually more on the line of when the fighter moves up weight class, it's probably better for them. It's less weight cutting. But like a guy like Donald Cerrone, he clearly has been more up and down in his welterweight tenure than he has at lightweight. Clearly. Even though he's obviously healthier for a lot of reasons other than just by cutting weight. Mauricio Shogun Rua versus Tyson Pedro in the works for UFC Fight Night 142. R.I.P. Shogun Rua. It was nice knowing you. It was a great time, man. I hope you're going to be okay after that one. No, we need to play the music again. Justin Willis versus Mark Hunt, teed up for UFC Adelaide in December. God. The fall of our idols here. Sad. But ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Yes. Hit the like button, share the show on the way out. I am Matt the Hipster Hunter. Matt Hunter MCR, all platforms to discuss all things box, MMA, and everything in between. What else? Thanks. We are in desperate need of somebody to work our social media accounts. So if you are a avid listener to the show and a hardcore fan of the sport, whether it's MMA or boxing or both, hit me up, mixedcombatradio@gmail.com, or social media. You can hit me up on any of my social media platforms. You can DM me there. Let's have a conversation because we do need some more social media gurus out there working our platform, making it grow and expand. What else? Be back tomorrow. And obviously, what time is it right now? 3:20. Be back at 4:30. 4:30 for a championship rounds edition of patreon.com/mixedcombatradio. Go there to help support the show financially. But like I said, free ways to support the show. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, or leave that review on iTunes if you listen on podcast form. But yeah, that's about it. Have a great day, and peace.